Let's get going. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Scott. How are things going? I miss you.
It's been a long time. When
Was
was the last show? Was it March?
it feels like way longer ago than that, but it might actually have been. March feels like years ago.
Oh God, so many years ago. I think it was like the first weekend of March. March 1st. That's right.
But honestly, it feels so much longer ago than that to me.
Yeah. Well, we've been dealing with, about half a year's worth of stuff since then.
Yeah,
so.
right.
Yeah. All right. What's going on, man? How you been?
Yeah, things are okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You've had a good quarantine?
It's it's okay. I had a whole bunch of things going on right before we went into quarantine, and they all just sort of vanished all at the same time. And I was really numb for a while. I think it was maybe just a tiny little bit of shock or something. I don't know what it was exactly, but I feel like I'm adjusting better now. How about you? How are things going?
I believe it. Well, before that, I just want to say to the listeners, so we had this interesting kind of scheduling conundrum right after, like the episode after the live show. Even before the live show happened, Justin was telling us, well, I'm opening the show Spam-A-Lot at the Duluth Playhouse, and opening weekend or closing weekend, I think it was closing weekend, was scheduled right on top of our next recording session. And so we were working on ways to have Justin not be in there, and then the live show happened.
Yeah, suddenly.
And it worked out just perfectly.
Suddenly it became less important for me to be there.
Yeah, right. But what happened was the Beholder disintegrated your show.
It does feel like that. Lark died, and then if everything else, it fell apart in my life. It was insane.
Yeah. Not just your life, friend.
Yeah, right.
Society crashed when Lark disappeared. That was the Thanos snap for all of us. Yes, you had a bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah, I was directing Spam-A-Lot. We were literally days from opening. I was about to list my house. I was about to sell my house. Again, I was days away from listing my house. We had it was all staged. The marketing stuff was all drawn up. The papers were signed. I was in rehearsals for another show, Macbeth Dinner Party in the Underground. I had all these plates spinning, and then they just came crashing to the ground all at once.
Oh, man, that's a lot. So you asked about me. I did not have nearly as much going on. I have a job working at the hospital, which was supposed to be, it's kind of jokingly elective procedures, but it never really stopped going. Like we had a couple of slowdowns, but we've also had pack days. And I think things are about to ramp back up here with elective procedures being back on. But the hardest thing for me has been not seeing my girlfriend, Jamie, nearly as often as I was used to.
Yeah. We
actually just got together, on the other day for the first time in 2 months, that's a long time. But yeah. So we a lot of video chatting and a lot of Ticket to Ride app, that sort of stuff. So.
And she's doing okay?
Yeah, she's doing well. I hooked her up with a whole bunch of tea. She got me into drinking tea, and we had gone on a couple of shopping trips to Duluth Kitchen Company because they have that awesome selection of teas there. But that's been closed, and I don't drink it nearly as much as she does, and I had to stockpile. So I had to make sure I got her all of the extra teas that I didn't like. So there's like a blueberry ginger and a hot cinnamon sunset, and I think even a pumpkin spice. She's like, "Yep, I want that too."
So were you getting into tea before Scoott started drinking herbal tea, or
it might have been simultaneously? I think there's a lot of parallels. But let's be honest, that tea wasn't just tea that Scoott was drinking. That was herbal for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
That needed to come up more.
We can bring it back.
Yeah, we'll find out if we can. Oh, man. So, yeah, we kind of wrote out some questions here for each other, kind of a co-interview style, which I love doing because I've done it once.
Yeah,
and it worked out.
I really liked the discussion that you and Matthias had last episode. I learned a lot of things.
Thanks.
It was enjoyable.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I learned, make sure you ask the person you're recording with if they're eating a big bowl of ice cream before you start.
I am not.
Because otherwise you end up editing out a lot of sounds of metal clanging on porcelain. or ceramics or whatever
There's-
it is. And then
There's this thing too, like
Go
if you've been eating recently, you get kind of this chewy mouth sound, even though there's no food in your mouth still.
Adam Sipla, when I was doing, I want to see JC Superstar, was talking about how he doesn't have any dairy within a certain number of hours before a show because it gunks up your throats. And then I thought about that because I could hear Matthias's throat clear up as we talked more and more. It's like, of course, that was after the fact once, because I dug right into that file and it was clank, 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 scrape, 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 scrape. And I'm just like my hand or my face is in my hand. I'm just like, oh, click, mute that, click, mute that. How big is this bowl? God, I hope that was good ice cream. I worked for that.
Well, it turned out well.
Good, thank you. Anyways, yeah, so I asked Justin for some questions, and I sent him the questions that I had. We just kind of did this briefly, we'll shoot for like hour of stuff. And my questions are all 8 words or less. And Justin has these awesome, well thought out, multi-layered questions that just betray how experienced he is I'll just say more caring a person.
I'm legitimately interested in all of these things.
I don't even want to ask my questions.
Your questions were good.
Point. No, they're not. Mine is what's your favorite RPG history? Now, or what's your RPG history? That was the question. What's your RPG history? And I just write out bullet points like I'm just going to expand on these. I got the thing opened up and I'll just try to get into it naturally. But then I look at yours and I'm just like, my God, it's a total script. It's perfect.
Well, hopefully it comes across naturally too. We'll see.
Yeah, I you know what? I could read the ones that you've written. It would come off naturally. Me, I have to like build on it. It's like, oh yeah, I was going to ask him about that. How am I going to do this? How am I going to fake this? It's basically an extension of improv a little bit. How are you going to fake this?
You're opening the kimono here. The listeners are not supposed to know about any of this stuff.
Whatever. You know what? We're not going to be the first podcast to spoil things
That's
like
true.
this. Oh, all right. Anyways, yeah, we kind of talked about how what's anything else you want to talk about? What's going on with quarantine? Any future plans or anything like that? I mean, my question is, how have you been holding up? Justin's question is, how are things going for you? How has your day-to-day life changed since quarantine started? And how will it change the way you live your life after it ends? That's Justin's question.
I want it to be open-ended.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. All right.
Yeah. So let me ask you that, Scott. How has your day-to-day life changed since quarantine started, and how is that going to change the way that you live your life after it's over?
See, and you still make it sound good. My day-to-day life, I guess, hasn't totally changed. There was a lot of confusion at work early on. If you haven't listened before, I work at I do electrophysiology stuff. So I basically help install pacemakers. Work has continued. They haven't stopped that much. Pacemakers are necessary, kind of. The hardest part was those early on when everything was confusion. What's the protocol? How do we keep people safe? How do we make sure this patient doesn't have COVID? And every day you got a protocol on how to handle something. And every day when you got there, or every next day, it was different. So there was a lot of chaos, but things have kind of settled down since then.
Are you still going in like regularly, or for a while you're doing week on, week off, right?
We still are in week on, week off, but my hunch is, this is my week off. My hunch is that after my next week on, things are going to get back to normal. I think the thing with these elective procedures is that they're actually big money makers for the hospital, and the hospital's hurting for money. I mean, they're talking about being down 30-40% of their revenue,
which is crazy. You'd think that a medical crisis would not impact healthcare providers that way. Sort of the opposite.
But for day-to-day life, I was kind of a hermit beforehand. I just sort of bunkered up, edit the podcast, play some video games. I didn't do that much.
You did some. I guess you had already sort of stepped away from your improv stuff for the most part, but like you were still calling. You're doing Blingo and you're doing some things like that, and then getting together with Jamie all the time. Like, so your free time has changed somewhat, right?
Yeah, I would have to say it has. but it seems that, I mean, it just seems so insignificant when you weigh it against everything else that's going on. I mean, if you just look at the news and you say, oh, well, I'm not calling bingo anymore. Well, that was 2 hours a week, sometimes 4 hours a week. You know, I just end up weighing it against the larger concerns. So yeah, that has changed. I do kind of miss that. I miss having an audience, a live audience like that. But when I think about what it's going to take to get us back in there, I mean, especially something like bingo where you're handing out daubers for people to use. So you got, say it's a light night. Say you got 40 people in there. You got 40 different people using daubers, all touching them. Yeah. As well as all the glasses going around, things like that. So I don't know when that all started.
Yeah, or even just getting 40 people together in a room for any reason, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of where we lived, 40, maybe a little under for Twin Portals, but at least in that space, we could still reasonably separate people for 40 people, you know. Anyways, that's enough about my bullshit. What people want to hear from you. So what's going on with you? How's day-to-day going? I mean, the house is not on the market.
Yeah, we chose not to list it. Both of my shows are indefinitely, kind of in an indefinite holding pattern. Which is, I think, almost worse than if they'd been canceled, because if they'd been canceled, I could have just been sad about it and then moved on with my life. But now I have like this, like these open commitments to at some point in the future come back and finish these shows. I don't know. It's almost worse.
That seems like having something not completely broke, like not having a clean break in a relationship. Even. Because having been in shows before, I just don't know what I would do in that case. I mean, do you still work on the lines? Do you still work on?
I probably should be, and I work in communication still with my cast for the show I was directing, and I am saying keep the lines fresh or whatever. But in the show that I was in, I have not been running my lines, so I can't imagine anyone else is doing theirs. Yeah, we'll see.
I think at this point, once something is posted, once there is a show, once there is an audience, that audience is going to be so starved for live entertainment. They're just going to be thrilled. I mean, it's going to be every house is going to have a standing ovation from coast to coast.
I hope so. I don't know if some of those jokes in Spam-A-Lot will be maybe a little too close to home for right after the pandemic.
Oh,
bring out your dead.
I suppose. Oh, I think you got to fly in the teeth of that one. I think you just got to take it.
Just
and
own
ham it up. I mean, yeah. I mean, you don't say anything about it.
Right.
You don't mention COVID on stage.
Right.
But definite wink and a nod. But you still kind of have to stay true to that. I mean, that's a great song.
Oh, it's so good.
Not dead yet?
I love it.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Yeah, things are going well. I realized that I needed just any kind of creative outlet, because I already work from home, and so it used to be that I would spend my day by myself with my headphones on, knocking out code, and then in the evenings I would go out and hang with my friends and do a show and whatever. And then when things changed, my days stayed kind of the same, except they also became my nights. Like I was just supposed to, like my days just never ended. So I've been trying to do a little bit more writing. I went out and shot some footage for a short film. I stood like 6 feet away from a couple of people and recorded them separately. And I want to see if I can cut it together and make it look like they're in the same spot. I don't know, just finding things to do.
Yeah, just kind of staying creative.
Yeah, exactly. Scratching those itches.
Yeah. I just, for the first time in a long time, opened up a D&D book. I got a shelf right outside my bedroom, and the monster manual was sitting right there. And it's like, God, I have not held this book in a long time. And I take it off the shelf, I open it up, and Mind Flayer. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I miss that. So, I mean, yeah, that creative outlet's kind of gone. It's doing the podcast thing kind of works, but at the same time, it is a little bit on the repetitive side too. So you lose a little bit of the creativity.
Yeah.
So.
And I miss us too. Like I miss Swoj.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it was weird just thinking, I'm not going to get to play with Justin next month.
And that next month is stretched on and on.
I don't know. I'm really hoping June. It would be great if the building could open up, because we record at the Teatro Zaccone. Even our recordings, not our live shows, are done there, because it's a great space for us to use. And I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with that. I mean, is the restrictions going to get lifted anytime soon? That kind of stuff. So, no idea. Anyways, that's a lot of real life.
Yeah, I got another question for you then.
All right, buddy.
I'm interested to learn about young Scoott. Little Scoott. What were you like as, say, there's that kind of like magical window when you're a kid between like 8 years old and 12 years old. What was that Scoott like? What were the things that he was obsessed with? And then, did any of those fascinations carry over into your adult life?
Well, I looked it up because, like I said, we send the questions in advance just to give people a heads up, because otherwise people just, if it's me getting these questions, like, so that's why I want to make sure everyone gets a chance. I looked up 12-year-old Scott's, so that would have been 91, because I'm very old. And that year, the Super Nintendo came out, and Final Fantasy II came out for the Super Nintendo, and Super Mario World came out, and that is what 12-year-old Scoott was obsessed with. Video games then, still pretty much video games now. It's all pretty well carried over. I think I just started getting interested in D&D a little bit, because of the RPG video games I've been playing. Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior is what it was here. It's Dragon Quest in Japan. Those kinds of things. And I had picked up I think I picked up a D&D starter pack. I remember it came with it was 6 dice at the time. And it was this red manila folder that had all of these sheets that could be pulled out, and there's a certain order, and they kind of taught you about hit points and armor class and things like that. I bought that at the Walden Books at the Miller Hill Mall.
Walden Books.
Walden Books. That had a little like role-playing section with a bunch of choose your own adventure books, that sort of stuff.
So do you have a nostalgia for those that era of console gaming?
Oh yeah. Yep. And I'm love that it's making a comeback too, Aside from things like the Super Nintendo Classic, retro games are amazing, and indie games now are able to kind of emulate those 16-bit graphics. One of my favorites that I put many, many, many hours in is Stardew Valley, which is straight out of that era, 16-bit kind of design about running your own farm.
It's so lovely. And one guy did it, wrote the whole thing, did all the graphics, the music too, right? That's amazing.
I think so. Yep. It was, one of my favorite games it's probably my favorite game, at least of the last 5 years. I want to say 5 to 10 years. Yeah, I just think it's phenomenal. So that kind of stuff. A lot of video games, and I never went away from that. I got more interested in D&D as I went on. I didn't really get into my first games until quite a bit later, but that's kind of where I started. What about you? I mean, what's your history with role-playing games? You got a few years on me, so I'm sure you started earlier.
Yeah. My first, I started with Dungeons and Dragons. My first D&D was it would have been second edition. It was when they did the basic set, so it came in a red box with the Larry Elmore art on the cover. Okay. Yeah, and then there was the expert edition, and I forget, like each set covered a different set of levels. So I feel like the basic one maybe took you up through level 20 or something, and then or maybe 10. Maybe they went by 10s. I can't remember exactly. And then it went up all the way to like the Immortals set. But I had the basic set. I loved it so much. I played in that same era. I played a bunch of, I shouldn't say that I played. I lived way out in the country, so I didn't get a lot of opportunities to play. I had a couple of friends that I played with a few times a year, like maybe 5 or 6 games a year. The rest of the time I was just like reading through the rule books and the source books and the modules, and drawing my own adventures and designing all of these things, and they never saw the light of day. It was just for me. But I loved, I really was a big sci-fi guy too. So there was a GDW, the Game Designers Workshop, came out with this game called Traveler, which was really, I never played it, but it was really like rules heavy and not super friendly. And so TSR came out with a competing product called Star Frontiers. And as I recall, the motto for it was the one you can play. Like this sort of snide dig at Traveler.
Some early shade.
Totally. It was kind of space opera-y. It was super fun. There was a video or a computer game that I played at roughly the same time called, what the heck? It was Starflight, I think was the name of it. And those two things together, I loved Star Frontiers. There was another one that was kind of a post-apocalyptic game called Gamma World. Nice. Yeah, and you talked last episode about your sort of cyberpunk fascination. I was excited to hear that because mid '80s, that was sort of the golden era of cyberpunk. And so there was the GURPS cyberpunk source book, and this killer game called Paranoia. I love.
Sounds familiar.
It's so subversive and hilarious and fun. And that was, it's not straight cyberpunk, but it's very cyberpunky. The computer game Portal, when that came out, it totally reminds me of Paranoia, because there's like this AI system that would be issuing everybody these directives, but they're often like they seem like the directives are at cross purposes, like they're maybe not quite they're maybe wrong, or there's something about them that is untrustworthy. And you're issued all of this equipment that is also like often faulty or experimental. And then, you're working in a group with your team, with your party. But the groups, like the thing that the party is trying to do is there's an additional set of objectives that each individual player has. And those are often at cross purposes. Like they might be to steal something from one of the other players or to murder one of the other players. And the whole thing is sort of like this amped up paranoia, like thus the name of the game. And you always have all these clones. So like being killed by the game or the computer, or being killed by other members of your party is totally it's like encouraged, because then you just spawn up another clone and you're fine again. And it was just so fun. I love that.
It sounds like a Battlestar Galactica game meets Werewolf.
Well,
it's like there's definitely some social stuff in there.
There totally
too,
is,
right?
but it was an actual pen and paper RPG. It was crazy. I think Mongoose has reissued it. I should look that up and just see. I feel like it would be so much fun to play. So I love that. There was an AD&D source book called Oriental Adventures, which I guess it's probably not as PC anymore, but it was a beautiful idea, which instead of sort of having the setting be medieval Europe, it was medieval Asia. And so all of the classes and the weapons and the skill trees and everything were based on that history instead. And it was actually really well designed. And so I used that a lot in combination with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness was the name of the source book. And it was early TMNT. This was before they became like funny and pizza obsessed. It was still kind of the dark early indie comic days of TMNT, where pre-Cowabunga. Yep, Shredder was a drug dealer and an arms dealer, and it was hyper violent. It was.
I'm learning a lot. I want to get into this.
It was so good. That source book was absolutely fantastic. So you played. You were always a mutant, but you could pick the animal that you mutated from and decide the level of your mutation, and that was one of my favorites. I played that a ton. So I did that kind of stuff just mostly by myself. I got to high school. I started my freshman year of high school, so it would have been 1989, 1990-ish. I started a Dungeons and Dragons group. We would play, nice. We would play at lunch, except that the upperclassmen would come in and rip up our papers and punch us, because it was the 80s.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, I think people now watch The Breakfast Club and like, how come everyone's so mean? Because they were. That's sort of how it was. If you read comics or Lord of the Rings or played Dungeons and Dragons, you got punched. That's how it went.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Stranger Things.
Yeah.
It's not wrong.
Yeah. Pretty accurate.
Yeah. That's pretty spot on. And what was the answer? lift weights, punch him back, or whatever.
or get stuffed in your locker
Find a different spot.
read your Dungeons and Dragons source book by flashlight or something. I don't know.
Yeah, find some other place to hide and play your game.
Totally.
That was life then. Oh God, I need another drink.
Yeah. So I played through college by second edition. When my kids got a little older, we played some of the D20 systems. Star Wars was one. All of the 3E and 3.5 stuff, and then I bailed around fourth edition. It kind of lost me, and I don't know, maybe it's just where I was in my life at that time, or something about the state of tabletop games at that time. I just sort of bailed, and thinking maybe I've outgrown this. But then 5 years ago or so, I moved here to Duluth, and met some like-minded, awesome people, and got into 5e, and I was like, man, this is way better than 4th edition. Kind of focused on the things that I loved about role-playing, and I was super excited to get back into it.
Now, it wasn't just you. There was something in the air about 4th edition because, and I had the 3.5 rule books, things like that. And I kind of had the same experience with you, except I had a lot of people around. I was just too lazy to actually get up and try to get into a group or anything like that. I'll just I'll just sit here and play EverQuest instead. But 4th edition turned some people off. I had a friend at the time she wanted to play a lot of 3.5. She actually had a few groups, and then I was at Collector's Connection with her in the mall, and they're just like, oh, 4E coming out. The guys were just trying to sell her hard on 4E, and she kind of looked it over a little bit and went, not sure about this. Ended up giving it a try later with she had borrowed somebody's book. She wasn't going to make that investment, but she said, nope, not for me. Ended up playing a 3.5 game long after 5 came out.
Oh.
So there was something about 4th edition that really turned people off.
I think with the 4th edition, they maybe made some assumptions about what people wanted in a tabletop RPG and focused that on a very specific vocal minority of players. And I feel like 5th edition is so approachable and so welcoming. It allows you to dig into, to be hardcore to the level that you want to, but not necessarily have to, right? You can play rules light and it still totally works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot. I've looked at some of the older versions, and my eyes kind of gloss over when I see THAC0.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, to hit Armor Class 0. That seems like a lot of work. I'm not, I'm not that afraid of math, but I'm not going to run headfirst into it either.
Yep. If you don't need it there, why?
Yeah. Right. It's because I think they figured out this is about telling a story.
Yeah.
This is just a book of rules to help facilitate everybody. Well, just something that everybody can agree on to tell the story.
Totally. With, and that's what that's what I really love. You mentioned when you talked to Matthias that you're kind of a stats junkie, and I'm not. In the kind of gaming quadrant, the Bartle quadrant or whatever it's called, I'm on that kind of socializer explorer side of things. I'm not the achiever. I'm not the killer. I'm just a different kind of player. So yeah, I really enjoy that aspect of it quite a bit more.
That might be a fantastic segue right there to your next question. Types of players.
That makes me wonder, Scott.
Yes.
when you and Matthias were just, because you sent out these surveys trying to see, judge interest and see who might be a good fit, and I'm sure you guys had some discussions. How did those discussions go? Like, what were you looking for in the people that you wanted to become a part of Twin Portals? And we wound up all having some kind of performance background, so that makes me wonder, what was that part of the decision? How much? And having a table full of performers, now that you've seen what that means from a day-to-day, from an actual implementation standpoint, is that good or bad? Like, how does that make it better, and how does it make it worse?
That's the bad part about your questions, is that there's 4 questions.
Just start talking and I'll come back to it if you leave anything out.
Oh, excellent. All right. So when we did this, we kind of, Matthias and I, we're just doing some brainstorming. It's like, okay, who do we think would be interested in this? And then we figured out it might be easier to just have a standardized form. We made a Google form. And when I look back and I think back on that, I'm like, how fucking pretentious, just like an application. It's like, what? No, I was taking it so seriously. So what were we looking for? Basically, it was just kind of chemistry. It's like interpersonal chemistry more than anything to try to figure this out. I think the one big thing we wanted a hopefully equal composition of male to female identifying people.
Sure.
Which is what we ended up getting. I think it works great because there's just so many sausage fests out there when you think about it. With so many podcasts where it's just, oh yeah, it's all these guys. No, we need other perspectives. We got all performers, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Everybody, let's see, Matthias has been in a bunch. You've been in a bunch. Beth, Kendra, myself, everybody, we all been in a bunch. Well, part of this is our group of friends are all performers. We don't socialize with a lot of people who aren't.
That's true. That's totally true.
That's there's a few people I've brought up when we've talked about bringing guest players. The only person who's not a performer has been John Brophy.
Yeah, that's true.
He's the only person who's been on the podcast who we've had serious discussions about being on the podcast is not a performer. And it's because he knows so much. He's DM'd a bunch. He's played a bunch. He knows the rules really well. He can get a character and establish that really well. And he's volunteered so much work. I mean, he's
great.
He's been fantastic. Just been so damn helpful with suggestions and things like that. So it was when we had a chance to get him on, it was like, yeah, no problem. And then we also had Robert Lee come on as Mr. E, who had never played D&D before, but had expressed an interest and listened to all the podcasts, like however many hours we had produced at that time. Let's see, that was probably 30 some hours of content at that point. Listened to it all. And at least for myself, when talking to Matthias about it, I said, well, I'd say easily the best character performer at Renegade Improv. I mean, he could just jump into somebody and commit to it. And he's so dry, He doesn't have that over the top sort of thing. He doesn't go it's not just like all dirty humor or all this kind of humor or anything like that. He's just kind of this dry delivery and dry takes on things. It's like, let's see what happens. If he wanted to play Terry the horse or Terry the golden, I was like, yeah, whatever you want to do, come on in. You'll knock it out of the
totally.
park, When we start talking about people who haven't been performers or who one of us hasn't met or the other, it's like I've pitched to Matthias a few people who I know because I just know that they have a strong interest in D&D, and in having conversations with them, I know that they're really good at the yes and thing. They're funny, they're quick, things like that. So, but it's also somebody who Matthias has not DM'd for before, which makes it a harder sell because Matthias has to be comfortable too. It's hard bringing somebody who nobody else knows into a game like this.
So it wasn't like you specifically sought out, like you've having conversations now about that kind of balance of experience, and how much you and Matthias know the person as well as their performance background or maybe their improv background, but it wasn't a part of those initial discussions quite as much. It just was because most of the people you knew were performers. Well,
we didn't seek out people who were performers. It's just that's all the people we talked to at the time still. So, it was kind of a closed circle. Let's see, it was me, you, and Matthias all play in the same game at home. So that's easy. And then Matthias had played with Kendra and Beth before, and knowing them myself, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. If they want to, let's get them in there. And that's just a good solid core. There's not a lot of I can't really think of any sort of questions in that, and it all ended up turning out just beautifully with that composition of people because different personalities, different gaming types.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's a nice awareness of a sort of a give and take in an ensemble too.
And that's where having performers helps, because we sometimes get out of it the fact that this is not a home game, this is a produced show. And it's when you get relaxed and the conversations start happening and the snacks start happening, things like that, that's when it kind of loses a little bit. But that, I think it's more controlled now because we have performers, people who can stay in character and do their thing for an hour at a time, have an intermission and come back, do it for another hour. I think it's only ever helped having performers. Improv skills, useful, but not necessary, I would say. It's kind of the personality type. Can this person accept that they are part of something bigger? You know, maybe that's it. Being a good teammate. Being a good teammate is better than being a good performer. It helps if you've got good clarity of thoughts, and you can. Now that I'm trying to word this right, it's going to sound absolutely ridiculous. Being able to speak a thought out and, you know, clearly, concisely, like I just did not do, for example.
No, I know what you're saying.
Sort of
yeah,
thing.
Totally.
Yeah. As an editor, I appreciate that, being able to at least get a thought or at least put a good long break in there. So I got a spot to cut it out. That sort of stuff. So if I had the choice between performer or not performer, I would take performer 10 times out of 10.
Sure.
That's not to say you have to be a performer. You just have to have the qualities of a performer. I know a lot of people who have the qualities of performers who don't perform.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, so it's like, I think of, for example, this guy I know from, believe it or not, from the bar scene, you know, friend of a friend who I met at the bar, ended up, you know, every time I see him, it's like, okay, chat for a while, buy each other drinks, that kind of stuff. His name's Nick Nelson. He made this beautiful dice box for me because he wanted to get into, he's a woodworker and he wanted to get into making dice boxes. And he said, hey, you want the prototype? Just kind of the proof of concept thing. I said, absolutely. He's a phenomenal guy, great energy, very funny, very quick. And if he wanted to do improv, he could do it, but I don't think it's something he's ever been interested in. Not a performer, but he'd be fantastic on the show.
Huh.
Loves D&D, listens to all sorts of D&D podcasts. So yeah,
that's awesome.
I guess that's where that is.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. What kind of questions do I have for you? All right. Yeah. So you talked about, I'm assuming you're more of a tabletop than a video game player, because I've only ever heard you talk more about tabletop games than video games.
Yeah. I think that was a switch in my life. Like I started out very strong, computer game. Like my background is very strong in computer games. And I had a sort of break with them, I guess. So I grew up in the era of arcades. We had an Atari 2600 at my house, but
me too.
Yeah, but like arcades was where I played most of those sorts of games. Mm-hmm. When we finally did get a computer, it was I played like all the Infocom games, like Hitchhikers and Zork and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Bard's Tale, Starflight, eventually point and click adventures like the Sierra games and the LucasArts games like Monkey Island. When I got to college was about when the sort of, I don't know that you'd really call them first-person shooters necessarily, or maybe like Gen 1 first-person shooters, so like Castle Wolfenstein.
Yeah. Wolfenstein, and, Original Doom.
Yep, Original Doom, like that sort of stuff. And I never, like, that's as far as I ever went in any sort of FPS. I don't have those fast twitch reflexes. I didn't grow up playing those kinds of games. I just can't I can't respond that quickly to what's happening on a screen. So I went the path of like Myst and Riven and Tomb Raider and a lot of RTS games like Warcraft and Starcraft, that kind of stuff. Played console games with my kids when they were little. I was into WoW for a really long time. Did a lot of mobile games. Actually started a mobile game company. So like I played every kind of mobile game I could think of. Yeah. Minecraft, that kind of stuff. But I just, at one point I realized that the things that I wanted to do most, like the things that I wanted to create, I wasn't having enough time for because I was spending a lot of it consuming games. Mm-hmm. And I had this hard break. And so at this point, I don't play any computer games, no PC games, no console games, no mobile games. I don't play those sorts of games. It was a really huge shift for me. And I started playing maybe 10 years ago now, a lot of after the kind of European game invasion made board games awesome instead of awful like they were when I was growing up. I started playing a lot of, more tabletop games instead, like board games instead of console games. So now I do those as social things. So it's a thing that I do with my family. It's a thing that I do with my friends. Like we'll get together for board game nights. And now that we're all quarantined, we're trying to continue that with like tabletop simulator and other sorts of remote game activities that I don't count as computer games, even though I'm playing them through the computer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I am at this point in my life more of a tabletop gamer, a significantly more tabletop game focused than video game focused. But that's a fairly recent development.
Oh yeah, no, it's I totally get where you're coming from on that stuff too. I lost a lot of hours into WoW. A lot.
Oh my gosh!
During my dark times,
they would have that. They had that total of like.
No.
The total of how much time you'd been playing.
/
right?
played.
Oh God.
That's the worst.
It's shocking. It's shocking. Like actual months of my life.
Oh, wait. So what were you in Vanilla WoW then, and Burning Crusade, like the early?
Yep. Yep. I played up. Let's see. I played up through Lich King probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. So I went down to GDC.
Of course you did.
Which is the Game Developers Conference.
Of course you went to
in
GDC.
Austin. Oh God, it was so good. A couple years actually.
I don't want to hear about how good it was.
Okay, it was really good. And we got to spend a lot of time with the WoW guys, and it was right about the time that they were releasing the version with the pandas.
Miss Pandaria.
Pandaria. Okay, it was right before that I stopped playing, so I have not played a WoW really since then.
Ugh. You haven't. So you must still get here's your first taste free sort of things. Like every so often they'll be like, oh, here, have a weekend worth of access.
Yeah. And when they did Vanilla WoW again, I was so tempted.
Classic.
That's the closest I came. That's the closest I came to reneging on my whole I give up computer games thing. I almost went back. I was like this. I was getting the jitters. I had the DTs, had the shakes.
Yeah, I'll make you feel better. So when I was at my worst, we'll call it, when I was deepest into WoW, I was part of a group of guilds that we were working our way through Molten Core and Blackwing Lair. So these, if you're not familiar, these were the second and third to last endgame dungeons for Vanilla WoW. And I was spending 40 hours a week raiding. So probably like 8 hours a night.
Ugh.
And that's not counting the time I would spend farming reagents or playing the rest of the game, things like that. Obviously, I didn't have a job. Obviously, he wasn't going to school or didn't care about it. That's why when I say dark times, yeah. So we ended up working our way, clearing Molten Core and Blackwing Lair. And, oh man, that's putting raid leader during Vanilla WoW on an application I would totally get, because the amount of organization and social skills you have to have for leadership to get that many people who are only in it for themselves to work together for one goal, knowing that only about 5% of them are going to get what they want that particular night. Oh man. Oh,
I think it's a testament to how well designed that game was, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was addictive in multiple ways. It was so well done. I still Jones for that game, man.
Oh, I do too. And that's why I asked about the have a first taste free sort of thing, because every so often, if you have the Blizzard client installed, you must not at this point.
I do not anymore.
Yeah, they'll say, "Oh, here's 72 free hours of WoW." I'm like, why? Why are you doing that to me? And now I can afford to play it, but I don't have the time.
Right.
I could easily, but oh God. So what I do is I wait for it to get really bad. I wait for the addiction to really kind of creep back up there to the point that when I'm driving someplace, like I'm going along Skyline Avenue in Duluth here, if I see a certain piece of landscape and I go, oh, that looks just like that place in Westfall. Oh shit.
Totally. I do the same thing.
Oh man. Yep. That's a problem. That's not good. So
that's so crazy.
Yeah. So every once in a while I'll jump in there and do that, and I'll hit it hard. I got this goofy thing where I'm like, I would like to get 1 hour of entertainment per dollar spent, That's kind of how I think
Oh,
about.
nice. That's a good way to think about it.
That's how I try to think about it when I'm buying a game. Like if I'm buying a AAA title at launch at $60, am I going to play this for 60 hours? Am I going to play it for close? Am I going to play it for 40? Is it single player, multiplayer, whatever? Am I going to, and that's how I help justify it to myself. Because 1 hour per dollar spent is really good when you consider, if you frame it in the perspective of like going to a movie.
Yeah, totally.
So,
that's a great heuristic too, because then you sort of offload the decision. You're like, okay, I have this metric. Does it meet that metric? It does. Okay, then I can buy it, no guilt.
Yeah, exactly. And I most of the times I'm fine in my financial situation. I wouldn't really miss the money anyways, but that's that last push off the ledge for justification. And so when I get a month of WoW, it's like, okay, am I going to play this for 15 hours? Am I going to play it for 15 hours over the first 2 days? And that's usually what ends up happening. Well, I should say the first 3 days, because the first day is spent probably about 6 to 8 hours just updating all the freaking mods and figuring out how to play a character again. And the start of day 2 is me trying to get back into this level 79 character I have of whatever class, realizing I don't know the mechanics anymore, and I may as well just start from scratch. And so now I'm building a new character, and I'm back in Westfall, and I see Skyline Avenue, and I'm playing it hard for about another 15 hours. And then after about 30 hours, I'm like, okay, I don't need this anymore. I've been doing the same thing for 30 hours. And then I'm fine for another 6 months to a year. And that's my modern WoW experience.
That seems healthy.
Yeah. Speaking of healthy, though, let's talk about your tabletop games. Do you have any favorites? Do you have any recommendations, things that people may not have heard of, don't know about?
Yeah, for sure. So like the games I tend to play most are kind of like in the casual strategy category. So I don't have the time. Maybe it is that's the reason to play games that take 2 hours. I just never pick those. So most of the games that I tend to go back to are ones that are really well designed, really well balanced, that I can play in like a half an hour to 40 minutes.
Okay.
So like my go-to is Splendor. I love that game, Splendor. It's really well balanced. It's got these great tactile gem pieces, fantastic. So I love that. The same for similar reasons. I love the game Azul, which is this tile laying game. It's really great. And Seven Wonders. Also fantastic.
I think I have the dual version of Seven Wonders. Did they come out with a 2-person variant of that?
There is a dual version. I've never actually played it.
I have it.
I don't. Have you played it? Is it good?
I played it twice with Jamie. The first time we were a little confused and we were like, oh, how do we build things up? It seems like there's a lot there once you kind of get an idea for all the different strategies. But I should run that out to you sometime.
Yeah, that would be fun to play. I really love Seven Wonders, the base game. It's so good, and plus it plays up to 7, so it works well. And everyone plays simultaneously, so you're not like waiting for 6 other people to take their turn, which is great. Because for a lot of games where you get 6, 7, 8 players, they can be designed in such a way where you sort of spend a lot of time waiting for everyone else to take their turn. Citadels is a really good game, but I find that when you get 7 or 8 players, you're just waiting all the time.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah. I've also got this recent acquisition called Colt Express. It won the Spiel des Jahres a few years ago. And it's this train robbing game. But the great thing about it is you can play up to 6 people, and each of you is robbing the train, but you're robbing it without realizing that the other people were going to rob it at the same time. So it's like 6 totally unrelated robbers. And so everybody has their play. There's the scheming phase where you sort of plan what you're going to do. Like, I'm going to jump up on the roof of the train, and then I'm going to run up to the next car and drop down, and I'm going to rob somebody. And so you have this plan, but everyone else also has their plan. And then so everybody puts their plans in place, and sometimes you can see what other people are scheming, and sometimes you can't. And so when you go in and then actually tell the story of what happens, like all of your schemes they get interrupted because you go to like punch somebody who you thought was going to be there, but they already moved to the next car, and you're gonna rob someone, but they already got robbed, and then I don't know. It's so much fun. So that's been a good recent discovery. Nice. Colt Express.
How many people do you play that with?
Because it seems, up to 6.
Seems like it'd be better with more.
Yeah, the more people are, the more crazy it gets. Yeah. It's frustrating and chaotic in a really fun way. Yeah, I love those. Mysterium, been playing that, Between Two Cities. I recently played Wingspan for the first time, which is a beautiful game. I only played it via Tabletop Simulator, though, because the print of Wingspan got sold out so fast. It was a really huge success at a lot of the game design at like Gen Con and stuff. So it's been impossible to get. Like you can order it, but people are like scalping the boxes for $160 kind of thing. Sheesh. So I was able to play that digitally, and it's quite lovely. I can't wait till I actually have the physical game.
It's Wingspan, you said? Yeah. I'm writing all these down. How has Tabletop Simulator worked for you? Have you had any trouble setting that up or getting others to set it up?
It's okay. It's really. Have you ever used it?
I haven't. I've looked at it a few times. I tried it when my VR set was working, which has since busted. But I have played it on the flat screen too a little bit.
Okay.
But I haven't downloaded or looked at too many of the game setups for it. So it seems a little daunting. It's like, as soon as I see that there's a server address or server screen where I have to select a server, I start having like flashbacks to Counter-Strike and Team Fortress. And I was just like, oh man, I don't know.
It works as a stand-in for playing around a table with your friends, but it's a pale substitution, like it really is just a physics simulator.
Yeah. Okay.
With pieces that can be skinned in a way that looks like the game pieces. And so there's a lot of fiddling around with like trying to move things and set them down. I don't know. It's fine. I wish it was better. It can be scripted, and so some people write kind of bootleg scripted versions of games. Most of the stuff that is available for Tabletop Simulator comes out of the workshop. So it's not official content. It's all kind of bootleg content. And it is sometimes scripted effectively and sometimes scripted in really buggy and obnoxious ways. Yeah. So it's hit or miss. I can't wait until quarantine is over and I never have to use it again. But
well, that's optimistic about society.
Okay, we're not going to have to use it again for a while. Maybe. I don't know.
There you go.
But it's scratching an itch for now, I guess.
That's good.
Yeah. I've got a question for you, kind of bringing it back to Twin Portals.
All right.
Where do you tell new listeners to start? Like, how do you have that when someone's like, "Hey, you have a D&D actual play podcast? I'll listen to it." Do you say, "Oh yeah, start at episode 1," or do you direct them somewhere else?
I just tell them to start at episode 1. I basically tell them with the caveat, and I've added this to the notes since it happened. I said that the actors in the story is better than it sounds. The sound quality is that's my issue. I don't worry as much about the story, about people jumping in the story, because it's a weird, convoluted story that's gone a lot of different places, a lot of different characters in it, scenarios, motivations, things like that. I can't keep track of it. I don't expect somebody listening to keep track of it at this point, and so that's why I trust so much the recaps that Matthias does. But I don't know where else would be a good starting point. Do you have an idea?
I've told people a couple of different things. Like I thought that the Christmas episode is a fun place for if people just want to kind of get a taste of it, even though that's so different than any other thing that we did.
Yeah, that would be an odd spot to start, I would think, but I don't know.
Because it's such a standalone piece, because you really don't have to know anything.
Yeah, it's a one shot.
Yeah.
I don't know though. I think at this point, here's one thing. Here's something I could say is that we have to have so much explained to us during the episodes when we're recording it that it might not be that hard for somebody jumping in.
We're just as lost as any new listener would be.
I feel like that might be very legitimately true. I mean, because especially now, right? 2 months out, I don't even know what I would do if I had to just jump back into it. If I had a gun to my head and had to answer a quiz and get 70% on it about Twin Portals, I don't know. I don't know if I could pass right now.
You do a quick study.
Right? Oh, God. But basically, yeah, my concern as a producer is more in the sound quality. I trust that Matthias is putting together a good story and that we're playing it the best of our abilities. But I spent so much time worrying about dialing in the sounds just right that's what I worry about. And that's the thing that I tell people. I said, it's going to sound like 5 people in an echoey room because that's what it is. And it'll stop at episode 13. It'll sound like 5 people in an echoey room with their own mics, which is basically what I can get out at that point because I'm still learning all this.
I mean, yeah, there's a definite improvement in the sound quality, but also I think we didn't really, as an ensemble, really find out who we were to each other as well as who we were individually until probably, I don't know, episode 3-ish. I think it's about like that first live episode.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like things really solidified in a number of different ways for the first time.
Yeah,
like I think Twin Portals after episode 3 is different than Twin Portals before episode 3.
Yes. I absolutely agree. Do you think it was us having a live audience and realizing, hey, people are listening?
I do. I think that that's a big part of it. And I mean, some of it is probably just kind of familiarity too, like maybe some of it. But I do think a huge part of it was, to sort of really in a concrete way be like, oh yeah, this is not just us playing a home game of D&D. This is a show that we're performing in.
Mm-hmm.
We are listeners.
Yeah. God, it's so weird sometimes. We're just, because we do. I mean, most of the time it's just us sitting around the table playing D&D. And then every once in a while we get that gift of being able to do it in front of an audience.
Yeah, it's so great. So it seems like we're kind of nearing the end of this first arc. Do we, do you as a producer, do you envision there being a kind of clean end of season 1 or whatever you want to call it, beginning of season 2? Like, is there going to be a clean separation point where then people could jump in there if they wanted to?
I would love that.
Or is it just going to flow naturally?
Yeah, I would, I'd love that. I'd love it if we just had, okay, and bam, and all this stuff, and then we get to
put a bow on it.
Yeah, just, I would like to keep going with these characters, or at least have these characters in that story somehow, but that then falls on Matthias to make sure that they get introduced. I don't know how we would do that then. I mean, do you just say, all right, Scoott, you're also playing Jimmy Job Bodang, and if Scoott comes up, you can tell us what Scoott would do. I don't know what he would want out of that. I hate that I just named my next character. Jimmy John Bodang.
Oh, we got to keep Scoott.
Oh God. Oh yeah. No, I'd love there to be a clean break, just like and bang, and here's what's coming next. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I think we have slightly different preferences as far as like story construction goes. Like I would totally be fine with some insert episode that's like the story so far, like do a whole edited piece and just catch it up. But I don't think that the kind of listener I am is the normal listener for actual play podcasts. I think you have a much better sense of what people would want to listen to, and I think like if we did a entire recap episode where we just sort of summarized everything so far, I think everyone would skip it. Whereas I would listen to it. I'd be like, yeah.
I think I would listen to it. I think the way I would want to do it is it would have to be conversational. It would have to be, it wouldn't be a series of clips. I don't think, maybe a couple in there, but I don't want to do that kind of work. I would, that's a lot of digging around, man. That's like a weekend of work. I would rather just have it be Matthias makes up cliff notes, and then there's like 2 or 3 or 4 of us going back and forth, just finding a way to deliver this in an entertaining fashion.
That's a pretty fun idea, actually, especially if we're we're sitting around together trying to remember exactly what happened, and then we could cut in a little bit of a clip.
You know what? Drunk History Twin Portals.
This is fantastic.
We can get a sponsor. I've been drinking Hoot cider tonight. I mean, we'll find out. Oh shit!
I love it. I think this is we have to do this now, Scott.
I think it's fantastic. I'm all about it. And we're all becoming more alcoholic with the quarantine anyways, and so why not?
Totally.
Oh my God.
I'll leave that up to the producer to schedule.
Oh geez. Yeah, that's I'm physically excited about that. So
I'm glad this is not a video chat.
Yeah, right. That'll be next. You'll find me on the Twin Portals OnlyFans. Oh God! Is it too late to get some more fan art commissioned? Alrighty. So my next question I have on my list would be, Lark disintegrated. What the hell?
I know.
What? What? Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this happened. So I'm playing the sneakiest barbarian that's ever existed. This pissed me off after the fact. I don't think I've ever just been rage run in, anything like that. It's always been, okay, and strategize, just like with the stable, normal upbringing of having two caring parents, just trying to get through the day.
Right.
But instead, I let you run in there and take a disintegration ray. Well, you know what?
But
you're faster than me, so I don't have a whole lot of control in that.
But I was being super sneaky. I had rolled like a 23 or something, and then I had the additional +10 for Cone of Silence or whatever. So
Pass without trace.
After the Cone of Silence had expired, I was still I was so stealthed. Well, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I did not rush in. I was being very sneaky.
No, you did. But that's, I guess by saying that, I was saying that I have half damage on everything except psychic. Why didn't I just run in there and this is Scoot's actual regret coming out
Poor Scoot,
of my voice right
guilty.
now. Oh God, it's been a rough 2 months.
Oh.
Yeah, that sort of. There were so many different focuses at that point. There was the zombie beholder, the mind flayer, and the unicorn.
Yeah.
Right? Am I correct? Those are the three.
Yes.
And so everybody had a different goal, it seemed like.
Yeah, I think we were all at the end trying to get to the. We were all trying to get to the unicorn, except you were tackling the mind flayer into the pool.
Yeah, I just wanted to take him out of play, and also I wanted to look super cool.
which you did, but you were trying to because he was controlling the zombie, the zombie beholder, right? So you were trying to take him out of commission so that then it wouldn't be animated anymore.
Yeah, so the control would be broken.
I feel like everybody was behaving responsibly.
Yeah,
it just didn't work out.
Oh man,
I don't know how he saw me through my stealth. I guess when I got by the unicorn, my stealth was broken or something.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and listen to it. But
it was a shocking moment. I have to say. Like, it was devastating personally. I guess I love Lark. I love that character. But it was actually a little more exciting than devastating in the moment because I also have this sort of cruel fascination with those sorts of turns. Like when you're in a narrative where there are real stakes or when unexpected things happen. I love that so much. So it's like seeing the look even on Matthias's face. It was on everybody's face, and I'm sure it was on mine too, even on Matthias's. And then this sort of stunned silence in the audience. And then even like after the show wrapped, people for days, they, I was getting people coming up to me like, "Oh my God." It was so great.
It's so awesome, and I hate it. Because I was next up, I'm next in initiative, and it's like, 30 some points of damage. And I'm like, oh shit, that's a lot of damage. And then disintegration. And you start going, okay, well, what's the specifics on disintegration ray again? Cause if it's more than my max HP and I didn't lie about my rolls. So, and then
all you have to do is get down to 0 with the disintegration ray, and you are disintegrated.
Is that I thought it was if you get
no.
Oh, it's just down to 0. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard.
Oh man, yeah. And we'd already seen that once. That almost makes it worse because John's character. What was his name?
I forgot.
I do too. We have to.
Sorry, John.
I have to cut this out.
The name of your character.
Yeah. I remember I had his character sheet, and then I felt so dirty about having his character sheet. Because I said I was going to loot his butt. No, I can't. Nope. I just take some stuff. I just there's something about somebody else's character sheet that's just holy, and I don't want it, especially a dead character.
Right.
I'd rather say, yeah, I pick up his dead body and I weakened at Bernie's with it. That feels safer to me than holding his character sheet. Like in the whole of the universe and all the karma and mystics,
Right.
It's just like, you don't fuck with the character sheets. But yeah, so it sucks because it was like foreshadowing.
Yeah, totally.
Oh God. And so, yeah, it hit you. And then we're all just, okay. So, well, where there once was Lark, there now is just a perfect little pile of flamboyant ash, and his hat is resting on top of it. Scoot.
And good night, everybody.
Scoot, now what do you want to do?
Right.
It's like, huh? It's like, what? Well, I'm in the spawning pool, so I get out of the spawning pool. I was just dumbstruck. I was in shock. It was fantastic. Oh yeah. And then it ended. And then that's when it became real for everybody. The show.
Yeah, it was just kind of this half-hearted clap of everyone in the audience like, oh my God.
The show ended.
He's dead.
They didn't bring him back. They're not in a Zyquil dream. I was like, oh, what are you talking about? Oh God, my first thought, how are we going to undo this?
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what turns out. I don't know if Lark is a part of this story going forward. I would be so sad if he wasn't. I heard you last week say he's not capital D dead, but I don't see how he's not capital D dead.
I don't either. You disintegrated. We have to pull you out of a different realm where your body goes, or your spirit goes, and we have to put you into a golden retriever.
Ethereal plane. Yeah. Oh, I'll be the new Terry.
Oh God. I'm just like, and at this point, I'm willing to do some not nice things to make that happen.
I'm so looking forward to seeing where this goes now. Everything is so. It's like when the bomb went off. Just like things sort of shifted. Like there was this shift in the focus of everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, exactly. Oh man, God, that was dark.
Thinking about the audience interaction during that moment, where everybody was kind of sort of just stunned by what happened there. Like I love those times where it feels like there's special buy-in, or there's, I don't know, when people laugh or whatever. Like, do you think from an audience interaction standpoint during our live shows, do you think that what we're doing now is the right amount? Are there opportunities for that we could grow that in some way, or be more directly interacting with them? Or is that not a thing you want to do? Like if you put your producer hat on?
Do you ever watch the live stuff, like especially like the AC Inc. stuff?
I have seen some of it. Yeah. Like where everyone yells green flame.
So, yeah, that, I don't care so much about that. I don't need a catchphrase, but the audience does, and this is an audience of 3,000 people. I've been in that hall where they record that. It is awesome. The energy is unbelievable, and I was one of those people yelling. I like when somebody is invested enough to shout a suggestion or something. It's easy to tell when somebody is doing it to be an asshole and when somebody's genuinely bought in.
Sure.
We, especially myself, who did 10 years of improv, I can tell when an audience suggestion is coming from the heart and when it's, just coming from the asshole. That's that sort of thing. So far, I think our audience has been absolutely great. I don't mind it, especially if they have a suggestion for abilities that I've forgotten or somebody else has forgotten, something like that. I don't think it's ever gotten to the point where I thought I had to shut this down a little bit. But I also think if I needed to, I think our audience would be receptive to that too. But it's never really come up.
Like if we specifically ask them something or...
Well, I don't mind that. I think it's kind of corny if it gets forced,
Sure.
If I don't want it to become like the improv game we came up to, Zero Adventure. But at the same time, if it was up to me to make a decision, if we were going to go in the right door or left door, I might look at somebody in the audience and say, which door? Something like that, But when it's played up, then I start to buy in less. that sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I like it. I like it to be natural. Like they are in the room. They're in the dining room while we're playing D&D. I think that's the best way to kind of describe it. They're in the living room. They're sitting on the couch while we're around the table.
So is it maybe it's a level of comfort for them as audience members, before so as they get more comfortable, they can they'll start to interact more, you think?
Yeah, especially the people who've come to 2-3 live shows, they I think, and people who have listened all the way through to this, understand. Yeah, you get what I mean,
Yeah.
If we didn't want that interaction, we shouldn't be doing it on stage.
Yeah, I want that. I love that.
I want their laughs. I want their boos, things like that. Yep. If it's
totally.
It's somebody who's just there to be an asshole or just hear their voice on the recording, that's I'm less interested in. But if somebody has bought into our story or bought into our characters or bought into the situation that we're doing, feel free.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for being there. Thank you for caring enough,
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got a favorite Twin Portals moment that you can think of?
Oh, so many. That first live show was pretty magical.
I was flying at work.
We had made little bets. I don't know. Have we told this story before? We made little bets before we went out on stage about how many people were going to be out there.
Yep.
And I was thinking like 12. I don't know who's going to come to this besides, our family, our family and close friends. And I don't know how many people were there that first night. 30, 35. I don't know. It was like a crazy number of people for the very first show of those that we'd ever done. Mm-hmm. We're 3 episodes in. And we're like, what is this? Is amazing. It was just so fantastic.
Yeah,
I love that. And of course, the moment where Scoott punched himself in the nuts in that episode. It's one of the all-time.
I so genuinely wanted to do that too. When I submitted that, I think that might have been the moment I submitted to the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council when I was trying to get the grants for the new microphones and equipment. So submitted to a place to get money.
Was that the grant that you got or the one you didn't get?
That's the one I got. That is the one I got.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just me performing an unarmed attack on my own testicles. Oh, that was it. What a moment.
It was just so good.
I don't know. It's just a very split second thought. It's like Scoott loves Jackass. Scoott would do this because Scoott is Scott, essentially.
The audience just ate it up. They were so on board with it. It was so much fun.
What I loved about that was the slow burn. Like, there's a few people who got it right away, and then it built and built and built. And this is the ace in the hole. Here's my biggest tip. If you're ever going to do a live game of D&D, you fly Lawrence Lee in to the audience and you have him in the audience because his laugh is magical.
Oh, and so great.
If you listen to that moment again, you'll know which laugh it is. I don't even need to point it out. It's fantastic. Lawrence, if you're listening, I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, Lawrence, if you hear this episode, we will pay your travel expenses to come to all of our live shows from now on.
Mostly Justin, but the rest of us will chip in.
Oh, I miss that guy.
Oh, he's fantastic. Yep. He's another one. We're like, oh yeah, if he's available and wants to do it, yep, sit him right down at the table.
Absolutely.
Because performer, knowledge, spirit, all those things, it would fit in so well. So
yeah, and I think he'd be a really generous player. It'd be so much fun.
By the way, Lawrence, we may have an opening for a rogue, but you're pretty busy on Sundays.
How do you look in a fancy hat, Lawrence?
All right, that's a lot of inside stuff.
Yeah, sorry. I have so many favorite moments. I love there's just sort of the give and take nature of the group too. They're like so often people will offer up a suggestion, like in the spirit of a gift, like an improv gift sort of, and it almost always is picked up and made magical. I'm trying to think of just like we were trying to find a cat for Terry's body in the alley, and we were like all really hesitant about killing a cat because Zay was feeling very conflicted. We're like, well, do any of the cats look meaner than the others? And Matthias just rips this whole West Side Story. Oh God, that sort of stuff is just fantastic. the poster moment in the Godcatcher where Lark finds the poster, like Matthias there took a tiny little bit of backstory nonsense that I'd worked up and made it this like critical character defining conflict moment. Or like the running gag we have with the album, like with Ilka's the tracks on Ilka's album.
Yeah. Basically,
like I think it was probably episode 1. We made Kendra she's like, I make the sound of a llama to startle the horses. We're like, what does that sound like?
And she was Googling what scares horses on her phone.
Just I laugh so hard. Even going back and re-listening to the episodes, I laugh so much. I love the tone of our show.
Yeah, bringing it back to like an improv thing. There's setting up, and this is not specifically improv, but there's, giving somebody a good ball to hit, like throwing them up a softball so they can crank it out the park, that sort of a thing, to confuse a theater and sports metaphor. Just being able to offer something up that you can see the punchline to, so somebody else can take a swing at it. That is, It is so good. And you're right. There are a lot of gifts that come out, even unintentional ones. Like there was a sequence in the last episode that I absolutely love. This might not be the precise sequence, but it was you saying, I don't know about you guys, but I'm only level 4. And then Ilka saying, we have to stop this.
Right.
And then me saying, this podcast?
The podcast?
Yeah. Just things like that. I mean, we do such a good job of building on each other at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
After a year performing together, and that's a year now at this point, a year and a half, even if you don't count these 2 months.
A year and a half. Yeah, there really is something about that. Just sort of the comfortableness that we have with each other as an ensemble, and knowing how that give and take will work. To be able to sort of lob those setups to each other, it's so magical.
Kind of in that same vein. There's not a star. There's nobody who's like, I'm the star of the show and I'm going to charge in and do everything except for Lark. Lark charges in and do things a lot. It's a lot of, and maybe almost to a detriment at some point. If I was playing a barbarian, more of a stereotypical barbarian, I'd be like smash down door, run in, swing.
Yeah.
But we're a little more deliberate, and nobody has to jump up and have everything and do everything like that. We all have our little things. I think about the time I tried to do that, and I was like, if you give me 10 minutes, I can talk to this raven. Because I have a ritual for it.
That's right.
And there's like, or I could just do it now. Because I'm the druid. I'm like, okay.
I think we're respectful of each other. We're giving. Like, I think it's a generous group. But I also think Matthias does a very good job of making sure to pull people in if it feels like they've been sidelined for too long.
Yes, and that's something that I think I'd given him notes on before, and I think I started in the home game. Is that, and I should also say this was something I took back from PAX when I was at that DM panel. Eye contact. Eye contact with the players, eye contact with the DM is huge. It's a fantastic nonverbal communication tool to let somebody know that they're into it, they're not into it, they have something to say, they don't have something to say, anything like that,
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, so much of, it's really obvious with me if I'm fiddling with knobs and fiddling with the computer and I got a headpiece on, I'm probably not going to contribute too much to this conversation because I got something else going on as a producer / player. But the rest of the time, whenever I can, I try to be active, try to make eye contact with the rest of the players, because you and I have communicated a lot over the table without saying anything.
That's true. We have a lot of shared glances.
Yeah. We get real expressive with our eyes and are able to tell quick emotions. What? That sort of stuff. So. And that just comes with familiarity and caring about what the rest of the people want and how they feel, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's been nice to see the group kind of coalesce and get stronger and grow together. It's really lovely.
Yeah.
So along those same lines then, how is Twin Portals different in a year or even 5 years out? Like, what's your blue sky vision for Twin Portals? What's your dream?
I've never been to a point where I've seen past 3 episodes. Everything's been, okay, 3 more episodes from now. Okay, when's the next live show? We can get together and record this, that. I don't know. I'm sometimes stunned that we did as many episodes as we did. I can barely believe that we got new equipment, some professional sounding equipment to work off of. I can for sure tell you that I'm looking at how can we get more, because I'm greedy that way and I want to keep going. I think I want to improve on the marketing. I want to try to grow the audience by having people we don't know listen to it. People outside the reasonable range to coming to a live show, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's really on me to actually get up in the marketing on that. I'd also like to become better at being a producer, being a sound engineer, being, set up, tear down, and editing in the middle, that kind of stuff. Because I still feel like there's worlds of information out there that I have no idea about. So I feel like I've been making it up the whole time. And the fact that we're still going stuns me sometimes.
And I think it's been really successful. Like it's gone well. It sounds fantastic. People seem to enjoy it. So I don't know. If you're just figuring it out as you go along, you're doing a pretty good job of faking it.
Totally faking it. A lot of energy, a lot of drinking and swearing at the computer monitor with the headphones on.
I think that's what most people do, though, right? I like nobody. If you only did the things you were qualified to do, you'd never do anything interesting.
That's
you're
true.
always like stretching towards the thing that you're just barely qualified for, and then fumbling through it and getting better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's been a raging success,
Oh.
and I mean that's all credit to you, dude.
Oh, no. It's the perform. I mean, if you guys weren't there doing that, I mean, there's nothing to do. If no one would just sit there and listen to me, and I know that for a fact because Jamie sometimes will leave the room. The one thing I'm really thrilled about, I don't know what I have for a vision. Like, I don't know what comes next. I think in the long run, I would like to get a place of my own with a basement that I could finish up and then actually make like a proper sounding studio out of. I think that's probably the dream. And then I can record whatever I want there. It might not just be Twin Portals, but
Sure.
hang up soundboard, get all the stuff in position so I don't have to haul a 400-pound dolly worth of gear into Renegade once a month anymore. By the way, if you need that dolly, let me know.
No, I wound up not having to sell my house. It's going to be a while before I need it.
It's a nice one. It's just sitting in the workshop right now. All the gear is still stowed in those same totes, sitting in the corner of my bedroom right now.
Oh,
Yep, it's just in a big stack. I played around with the Zoom H6 recorder a little bit to see if I can dial in those settings a little bit. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know what happens to Twin Portals once we can do things again. But I'm looking forward to doing things again. But here's part of the problem. Genuinely, part of the problem is that the next episode seems like it's not going to have Lark in it.
right.
And that's fucking depressing. It gives us something to do, but it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird, like from a tone perspective, it's going to be a weird one for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's been, again, 2 months since you vanished. And that's, people have said, well, why don't you just do something like where you all call into Zoom or you get, like a big group chat going? It won't sound as good. I really want all of us there to have to cope together with what happened.
Yeah.
I think we had a huge moment there, and I don't want to waste it on a Google Hangouts.
Yeah, I totally understand. I think it's a good call.
And so I'm happy to continue doing this for a few more months if we need to, at least 1 more month, and see if we can't actually get into a place where we can do things. I don't care if we're all sitting around and wearing, N95s and talking through N95s. I don't care if we sound bad that way, but our emotions and our reactions have to be bounced off of each other in real time, and they have to be recorded in real time.
Like you were saying before, there's something about that eye contact,
Mm-hmm.
and sharing those emotions, that sort of nonverbal cues. It makes it so much more alive.
Yeah. I think I might set up your spot with a microphone and all that, and then just put like a framed 4x6 of you right in there.
Oh.
Maybe your anime digital thing that you posted in the Discord server.
So, listeners, if you haven't joined our Discord server, you should do it. It's crazy times.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. We got a video game channel if you're interested in any Animal Crossing stuff. That pretty much, and a lot of Apex Legends. But kind of getting back to the producing stuff. Do you have any advice for me? Because you've done a lot of directing. Presumably, I would say probably producer adjacent if you haven't actually done producing. So you've probably got a lot of interesting thoughts. I've certainly used you as a sounding board for things before. So what do you think we could do better, or what are you really happy with, or what's your wishes?
Sure. That's a good, interesting question. Yeah, from a directing standpoint, it's a little different, right? Because so much of directing is about kind of tone management moment to moment. I think Matthias sort of steps into those shoes. From a producing standpoint, I think you're shouldering a huge like a huge portion of the effort for each episode. And I think like early on we had some discussions about like, maybe we could do this or maybe we could do this, whatever. And I think they wound up maybe even rubbing you the wrong way a little. And I think that had to do more with you had an idea of what you wanted the show to be. Mm-hmm. And we, the rest of us didn't quite understand that idea now. And I think, now over time, we're pretty much on the same page. Like we understand kind of where you're going, what the show is. But I think like as you, maybe what can happen is as you figure stuff out and as it becomes more rote for you, like more automatic, maybe consider offloading some of that stuff. If there's a part of the work, and maybe that's just schlepping the shit around, like all the equipment, or maybe it's I don't know, like if you have a marketing, like you have some idea about like this is how I want marketing to go. If you can point the direction and say this is what I think would work, or this is what I want to try. It's not even this is what I think would work. This is what I want to try. I think the rest of us are ready to step in and help with that stuff. Mm-hmm. So, from a producing standpoint, I feel like you could free up some of your own personal bandwidth to focus on some of the harder stuff if you could find ways to offload some of the less demanding things. I don't know. It's tough because, like you said, you're figuring it out so far. Yeah. Like this is all a thing that we're sort of figuring out as we go. But at some point, if you become your own bottleneck, right? Like then you don't have time to think about like what is the vision? Like what do I want this to be? And giving yourself like this mental space for that, I think could be really valuable. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
Part of that is being a control freak. Just wanting to make sure that it's all going the way I want it to. And the early episodes were a little rough because I was new to like listening critically. Different things would bother me to different degrees, just in people's different vocal performances, even my own at some point. And I would have to work real hard to try to correct them with varying degrees of success. But things like, obviously this little interview is evidence to that. So yeah, definitely things like Kendra has been great about helping with scheduling, for example, because she's already working so closely with the Renegade offices that it just made sense. It was easier for just let her be the person to communicate all that and figure out and be, just have one go-to rather than me try to do that. And I mean, she's already there. So
totally
things like that. So, but as far as, editing is really the worst. That's the worst part of this. The schlepping the gear isn't so bad because I've got that a little bit streamlined now too. Another thing, if you're ever thinking about starting your own podcast and you're not recording in your own home and you got to transport gear, spend some money in your cases. They're awesome. You will feel so good. I used to carry this in backpacks, and what else did I have? A couple of weird duffel bags. I bought a couple.
Your cases now are awesome.
Oh yeah, I got a couple of specific foam cases for the microphones, and oh God, it's just ridiculous. That looks very nice. Yeah, but it's the hardest part is the editing. I want to say everything else seems to. Oh, and you've been fantastic too. I mean, you helped us set up the distribution through Lisbon. Is that what we're using? Lisbon, I believe.
Yeah, Libsyn. Yeah.
Libsyn. I always type LI and I let the Google figure it out. What have I typed in before? Because I can never remember if it's LIS or LIB. Libsyn. So I was about to LIS. Nope, backspace. There it is. Let autofill do the work for me. So I've been trying to do that a little bit, but yeah, definitely I could probably do some more.
Yeah, like I don't know. I mean, knowing that you have like you have very specific ideas about the things that you care a lot about, right? Like that's important to understand. And so then those areas, maybe you don't delegate those, but there's got to be other things where you're like, oh man, it's a pain in my ass and I hate doing that part. If you can get that to a point where you can just say, hey, this is what I want to have happen. Would you, whoever, Justin or Matthias or Beth or Kendra, would you do that? I think we're, we'd be happy to step in there. So I don't know. I know being in your shoes, I totally understand. And it's tricky too, because like you are so invested, and it's hard to convey how much these things matter to people that aren't you, right? And I often will get into a position where I'm like, it's going to take me longer to just ask someone to do it and explain how I want it done and then make sure they did it right than to just do it myself. But if you get it, you get that to a point where it's kind of automated, and then the check is kind of automated. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't have any specific recommendations for you, but like those are the things that I personally struggle with, and I feel like maybe I'm projecting here.
No. It's valid. I mean, and it was especially hard early on because it was something that I hadn't really done before. I had a little bit of sound editing experience doing sound design for different Renegade shows. And so creating sound effects or like creating one long track for ambient music so I could have like slow crossfades, things like that. And so I was familiar with things like I'd used a little bit of Audition, and then I'd used Gold Wave if Audition was failing me for one reason or another. But when it became really hard was I want to say around that first live show, because that was in December, I want to say December of 18.
That feels right.
Sounds right. I was starting this new job, and I had been an x-ray tech for a few years, just taking, chest x-rays and hand x-rays and foot x-rays, things like that. That's what I went to school for 2 years. So I had enough of a basis for that, but I was only doing it once a week. So that was a little stressful because I hadn't done it for a long time. And if you don't practice it a lot, you end up getting it can get a little flawed, and then you may take a bad image and you get a nasty gram from IS or whatever it is. That's the job I left to go do the pacemaker stuff, which I had no experience with. And I was 1 month into the job, and it was 40 hours a week now. And it's stuff that I have no idea what's going on. So now I got no idea what's going on for 8 hours a day. And now I got no idea what's going on for this other thing that I want to do that I'm actually super passionate about. And we're doing a good job recording, but I just can't get the sound editing out right because I suck. And so that stress just started building up. But you're
doing a lot of studying at that time too, right?
Oh God. Yeah. A lot of studying EKGs. If that little line that goes beep, 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 couple little triangles, that thing sucks. There's a lot to it. And there are tiny little variations that mean very different things. And I've been doing this job now for a year and a half. I still don't know what the hell that thing means.
Huh.
So, but that's calmed down a bit, and I don't care so much about that squiggly line. I know more about the squiggly lines on Audacity in front of me right now. So I hope nobody from work listens to this. So that part of it is chilled out, and I also got more lax in what I was listening for. Like I would try to cut out every weird pause, every thing like that, and I've really taken it much easier on what I'm actually listening for. So now it's still a little ridiculous. Like if there's a pause that goes more than say a second, my ears will perk up if I'm not paying attention. And if I'm paying attention, I see it on the waveform to begin with, and I know it's coming up. And having multiple mics to manage is easier now because you can take one out easier than you can try to take one voice out of 5 on one mic. It's easier to take one voice out of one mic with 5 mics. So that was a lot. It's a lot of talking.
You survived, though.
And not a lot of talking and not terribly interesting. But yeah, I learned a lot. Still learning tools in Audacity, stuff like that. This is stuff that I probably, if I had just taken like an 8-hour class, would have saved me a lot of hours later on. But live and learn.
All right, I have one last question for you.
Go for it.
What did I not ask you today that you were really hoping that I would?
I have nothing. Ask me about my favorite video games or something. I don't know, man.
Yeah. What are your favorite video games?
I'm not answering. That's not your question. That's my question.
Oh.
So no. See, this is why it's so important to have so many different perspectives. These are the things that you wanted to know. What else do you want to know from what we've talked about? That I'll answer.
Oh man.
What's the burning question?
My burning question is, so you have a secret burning passion.
Okay.
That none of us know about. What is it?
Fires. Is that too literal?
Do you actually have a secret burning passion for fires?
Oh, I love fires. Are you kidding me?
You're just making this up.
I will snowshoe into the cabin just to have a fire in the dead of winter.
Is that true?
Oh, yeah, totally. I love fires. I love starting fires. I love watching. I was talking to one of the docs, Siva Krathapalli, one of the cardiologists at work. We were just sort of chit-chatting, and he was talking about how he's trying to get more serious into meditation since this whole thing started, because it was a good amount of stress in his job anyways, and so he's trying to do that.
Sure.
And he had talked about just try to not have a cell phone around, just try to not watch the TV, just try to sit there and be in a moment, just have that moment, things like that. And I kind of said, well, I don't know anything about that. I'm on my phone all the time. I'll probably buy a new phone and have them both on me at the same time, so I can use one phone and then play a video game on the other phone, because I'm dumb that way. But when I get a fire, I can zone out staring at a fire. And I kind of described it to him. I said, I'll just go up to the cabin, I'll start a fire, and I will just stare at that thing. It's like if it's just becoming like late dusk, so it's got that dark blue in the sky, but there's still a little bit of light from the sunset. A couple of the stars are peeking out. The waves are hitting the shore just a little bit. There's a tiny bit of a breeze. There's no bugs. Just that right amount of coolness. I don't care what I'm sitting on. I could be sitting on a log. I won't feel it. I'll just be staring at that fire. I'll look at the flames, I'll look at the embers just going, and I'll just be there for half hour until I got to throw another log on. That's my meditation.
Huh.
I love it. Love staring at a fire.
Do you have a substitution for that when you can't make it up to the cabin?
Alcoholism.
Just staring into my Duluth cider growler.
Staring into my growler. Why aren't you full again? No, I try to go on as many like walks or hikes as I can, because that's a different thing. Like, I'm a huge fan of the Superior Hiking Trail. Brewer Park is the section above Skyline in West Duluth, kind of like my home trail. That's kind of my main base. If I need to get my head cleared, that's where I go. I'll throw on some trail shoes and head up there, and you get to that point where you push yourself a little bit and you're starting to get a little bit of oxygen deprivation, and you start really having conversations with yourself, just letting it go, seeing where it goes. Every so often you get to that point, it's like, wow, I hope I remember that when I'm finished. And then you never do, because you've had another 2,000 thoughts on the back half of the trail. That's the kind of stuff I'm into.
When you walk the trail, do you like put on headphones and listen to something, or are you just walking in silence, like in your own headspace?
It depends on what I'm trying to do. If I'm trying to, if I'm stressed out and I'm trying to work stuff out, it might be music that doesn't have lyrics. Like, I'm a big fan of this guy called TPR who does melancholy covers of video game soundtracks. Huh. If I'm just walking for exercise, it's going to be a podcast, usually Min-Max, something like that. Or those are the two things, wouldn't it? Those are the two things. If I'm stressed out, nothing, or some light music. If I'm just doing it for exercise, the podcast.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you shared that, Scott. I didn't know that about you.
No
I love it.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Go hit the Superior Hiking Trail. Find every section is pretty awesome.
Have you walked most of it?
In Duluth, I've walked a good chunk of it.
Okay.
I think I've covered most of the trail going from not in one go, but from Fond du Lac to Hartley Nature Center in top of the hill in Duluth. So at one time or another, I've done all of those. So that's a lot of stuff that nobody really knows anything about.
And now they know a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll have to see how much of this I'm leaving in. All right, man. I'd say
this was fun, Scott.
That's a solid hour 50. You got anything else you want to do or talk about?
No. I miss you.
I miss you too, buddy. Hey, here's one last question for you then.
Okay.
If Lark is gone, if he's no longer a playable character, what class of what kind of character would you want to roll to bring into the campaign? Say at whatever level we are, say 4 or 5. If you had to think about it, if you had to go, this is the road not traveled stuff. You can't be that awesome swashbuckler anymore. You have to pick a different awesome swashbuckler to be. What do you got?
I feel like any character I would play after this point would be sort of Lark light. I don't know. I guess I tend to not play magic users. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that is. Just something about magic systems. Like the thing that is more interesting to me is the limitations of those sorts of systems and minor party dysfunction, and I don't know, I think that there are other aspects of RPG systems that are more interesting than magic systems. Mm-hmm. So I would probably not roll a magic user. But then you want to think about like party balance, and we already have a barbarian, and we've got a bard.
So you got fighter, monk, I think are the last two.
I could
Paladin,
maybe
ranger.
Yeah, maybe a ranger, maybe a jolly monk.
Oh, there's a drunken master monk, isn't there?
Yeah, in Unearthed Arcana, right?
I'm thinking
Just actually
Xanathar.
Official?
I think it's Xanathar's Guide.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that bastard Xanathar. That son of a bitch.
Xanathar! Drunken Master would be pretty. That'd be pretty fun. Although, was that who was Mr. E? Was that?
He was a monk. I don't know if he was a drunken master or not. I never got to look at his sheet. But
that could be pretty fun.
Yeah.
Although I did in our home game, I played a character with an alcohol issue.
That's right. What was he? He was a gnome something or other.
Yeah, he was a gnome. He was a gunslinger.
That's right. That actually might be fun. It might be fun to take a class or something from one of the Unearthed Arcana that Matthias signed off on and said this.
Yeah, I had to get Matthias's buy-in, of course, right?
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
A gunslinger probably wouldn't work for this campaign, but it worked surprisingly well for that home game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was pretty cool. All right, man. Yeah. You got anything for me?
No. Just if you could do something. I mean, you work in the healthcare industry. Do something about this pandemic. I want this. I want this.
I've tried.
I want people to get back together and record this face to face.
No one's listening to me. If they're not listening to Fauci, they're not listening to me.
I suppose.
All right, Lark Wavesilver.
Stay safe, Scoott.
It's been
really good talking to you.
It's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
You bet.
All right, man. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Take care.
Later, buddy.
Bye.
Twin Portals is produced and edited by Scott Hebert. The adventure is created by our Dungeon Master Matthias Valero, and the rest of the Silver Waves of Justice are played by Kenda Carlson, Beth Brophy, and Justin Peck. Make sure you give a podcast follow to our friends at Horror Rewind, The Nearest Stars, and Take It With You. This activity is made possible in part by the voters of Minnesota through a grant from the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council, thanks to a legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Thank you to Leeland Campana for use of his song Avernum as our theme song. Thank you to the Renegade Theater Company, Tiacha Zaccone and Mary Fox for supporting us and giving us a place to record. And most of all, thank you for listening to Twin Portals.
I appreciate when you cut out the parts that make us look like we're bad at the game. Thank you.
I try to do my. It's like, what? This sounds stupid. I want to get rid of that.
Silence.
And then it's jokes that I'm like, okay, well, they said that. I don't know if they think that's funny, but I'm going to leave it in. But I know what I think is funny when I say it, and then it turns out to not be funny, and I'm like, fuck that joke. That's going out.
This whole part's staying in.
Shit.